Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today I'm with top welterweight prospect. He is Mr. Jack Congdon, getting ready, taking on J.P Lebosnoyani, Contender Series, September 2nd. Jack, what's up, my friend? How are you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. You know, you train over in that New England area. Obviously, some great regional promotions there. You have CES, you have Combat Zone, you have Cage Titans. You know, you made such a big name for yourself in that promotion. So to start off here, what is it with the New England area in fighting? I mean, you have so many guys on the regional scene, so many guys, UFC, big shows. What is it with that area in combat sports?
I think it's just generally an area where toughness is kind of like part of the culture, right? You know, you think of the stereotype of Massachusetts is, it's the mass hole, right? Um, Everybody here has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, I think. Uh, you know, I don't know if it's the winters or just what it is, but it's a region where everybody's tough and everybody prides themselves on being tough.
Absolutely. You know, I think fans right away when they watch your style, I mean, it's hard not to fall in love with it. I mean, you're such an entertaining fighter. You're a very complete all around martial artist, but definitely the striking, I mean, is absolutely amazing. You're the type of guy you like to go forward. You like to put the pace. You like to put the pressure on these guys. How much pride do you take in that style?
Yeah, man. The biggest thing that I think I take pride in my style and in these fights is that I'm always looking for the finish. It can come in whatever way it is. It can be a sub or a knockout, and knockouts are more fun. But however the fight plays out is how the fight plays out. I think that I will be okay with myself, and I think that fans will appreciate if you're going for the finish the whole time, regardless of the manner that the finish presents itself in. When you go in there, if you're going to present the fighting spirit, you can have respect for your opponent, but you're in there to take them out of there. And I go in there with that mindset every time. I'm not just looking to win. I'm looking to get the finish and looking to dominate. And yeah, I think people intuitively know when they're watching a fighter that is going for it like that. And they appreciate that more. They don't want to go in there and see a point fight. They don't want to go and see somebody just hold somebody down for 5 rounds. They want to see a real fight. So I think the fact that I'm always looking to bring the fight is the thing that I would say that I take pride in my style.
You know, your last time in action was just in May against Zach Davis over at Cage Titans. You're able to put him out there second round. Beautiful TKO finish there. Walk me through that finish, man. What were you seeing in those closing minutes?
Yeah, so leading up to that finish, at the start of the second round, I went out there and basically sprinted at him for like 90 to 100 seconds. And looking back on it, when I hit him hard, which happened multiple times in those flurries, I believed I was going to take him out with each one of those hard shots that I landed. And I had that belief in myself as I, continued that flurry. I was like, this guy is going down here. I'm getting him out of here. But he was a really tough guy. He more so than really anybody so far has been able to take the shots well. He was eating some clean ones too. So credit to the toughness of Zach Davis. But yeah, I just went at him and kept going at him and kept going at him, and he stayed up. He was tough, and I should have done a better job of pacing that and been a little bit more methodical in choosing some of my big power shots in that moment. And that's a thing to grow from. But after that sprint, he put it on me. He was a tough guy. He's a volume guy. He comes right back on me, and starts landing some shots on me. Lands a clean elbow that splits my guard and cuts me wide open on the head. So then he starts to gain some momentum for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever it is. And in that time, I knew I had been cut. I knew it didn't look good. But, I'm kind of just in that state of where, you're in a fight. you just keep going with whatever there is. You just got to dig deep and keep fighting and find a way to win. I know at one point I threw like a big 1-2 at him from Orthodox, and I really tried to take him out with 2. And you're not thinking too much, but there's sometimes like brief moments where you get this like moment of clarity in there, and it kind of came when it was like, okay, don't try so hard, even though you're trying to catch your breath, or you've been caught, you're cut, whatever it is. Don't try so hard. Just fight, and the opening will present itself. And then right after that, I switched to southpaw, touched him to the body with my lead hand, and then came over the top with my left hand, caught him right on the chin, and knocked him down, and then finished the fight from there.
Absolutely. So many people are watching combat sports in this day and age. We're at a time where it's very culturally accepted now, and UFC has shows almost every weekend. You have PFL doing big things, the bare knuckles of the world, Karate Combat 1, all these different regional promotions around the United States and the world, to that matter. But very few people understand what it's like to be a professional fighter. To me, being a professional fighter is one of the toughest lifestyles you can live, especially when you're out on the regional scene. A lot of guys have to have that 9-to-5 job. Not really many regional promotions paying guys millions of dollars fighting. You miss birthdays, weddings, Thanksgivings, dinners. You stay up late. You wake up early. You do it every single day, maybe for the chance to be like the top 1% of the sport and fight in the bigger shows and get the bigger paydays. You've been doing this for quite a while, man. You've probably sacrificed everything on this journey. What's made you stick through it?
Of course. The biggest thing with that, and sometimes I think I'll lose sight of this day to day sometimes, because it is a grind and it is hard on the body and on the mind, and you have to make a lot of sacrifices, and you can't do what's comfortable. But at the end of the day, it's a privilege for me to chase my dream and to go after it 100%, and to be young and healthy and to do what I love all the time, right? Like, these are sacrifices that I've chosen to make for myself in the name of building something bigger down the line. So while sometimes in the moment, like, these things are hard to do, you're hungry, you want a pizza or a burrito or something to eat like that, and you get these cravings, but learning to overcome that and learning to have that discipline, I think is needed no matter what avenue in life that you have. Like, it's definitely needed as a fighter, but if you want to succeed in anything in life, you've got to be able to have discipline. You've got to sacrifice things. You've got to work hard. And again, the fact that I get to do it in pursuing the sport that I love, that's been my passion since I was a little kid, it's tough at times, but it is a privilege. What keeps me going through it is just believing that I'm going to get there to that end goal, right? And that is to get to the UFC. That's my first step. I got to go in there on September 2nd and win that contract and win that fight and do it in emphatic fashion. But when I'm in the UFC, continue to win fights and build my way up to the championship. And that kind of end goal keeps me going. I'm always looking to level up, like understanding that there's really no end, right? Because even when you win and you are the champion, well down the line, you're always going to have that next hungriest contender that's coming up after you. So there's really no finish line. So I think that constant pursuit of trying to better myself as a martial artist and as a person is what keeps me going. And, I hope too that my pursuit of this can help serve as an example to other people that want to work hard in life and go for something, whatever that thing is. Even if they just take up martial arts to get more fit, to learn a little bit of discipline, whatever it is. Part of my goal too is to serve as an example to other people of what discipline can do in your life. And in particular, the kids that I coach as well. I'm lucky to coach at Lakeville MMA as well. And a lot of the times I think about, the example that I'm going to set for the kids going to the fight. And, what I do day in and day out to coach them and stuff like that. So, that's kind of like the whole picture of, sacrifice like you talked about and what keeps me going through it. I think it's just is knowing that it's worth it.
Do you think fighting is more mental than it is physical?
Yeah. Everybody that is at the top has all the same skills to a certain extent. Some guys are better at some things than others. They're all going to be in phenomenal shape. You're going to have some fluctuation in body types. Some are going to be taller, some are going to be stockier. And these things play out in if you win a fight. But if you go into the fight with the right mindset and the correct spirit, I think somebody that is an okay fighter and goes in, technically, physically, and goes in with the right spirit and confidence and mindset can overcome somebody that maybe is more technical, but, has a chink in their mindset. When things start going wrong, they start to have these negative mental conversations. And if that's happening in the fight, that guy with the stronger mindset is going to take over. You got to be completely focused in there the whole time, just flowing with whatever happens. It's not always going to be pretty or easy in a fight. Even though, we want it to be, and that's our goal when we go in there, it's not always going to be that way. So you have to have a strong mind. You could be the most technical person in the world, but if something goes wrong and you don't like how it feels when you get punched in the face, and your mind starts to play tricks on you, it's over,
Where were you when you got the phone call that you were going to be on the Contender?
Where was I? Joe Lozon sent me an email. I want to say I was just in the kitchen at home. My girlfriend and Miguel were in there, and it was like, oh, we got the finalization. Yeah, we're going to be on for September 2nd. We had been in talks with them before, so I had it in the back of my mind that this was coming up and this had been the goal. But I think that is probably, if my memory serves me correctly, how it became finalized.
So you're taking on September 2nd, J.P. Lebosnoyani, a guy who's also had some great success on the regional scene. The guy's a very well-rounded mixed martial artist as well. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent here?
Yeah, he's dangerous, particularly on the ground. When I look at him, he's another kid that's done this since he was young. I started when I was 8. I don't know what age he started in. So it's two kids that have been lifelong martial artists. And when I see his past, I would say, too, I think he's a true martial artist. And I respect that. But at the end of the day, only one of us is going to go in there and win, and only one of us is going to go in there and get the contract. And I know it's going to be me. So he, like I said before, he's dangerous. He's got some good skills, but I'm fully confident in the matchup. And everybody is dangerous at this point. People are just going to keep getting better and better in the UFC. And I'm just going to keep leveling up and staying a step ahead there. I'm going to worry more about myself than too much of the opponent necessarily. Like, obviously, we look at film and things like that. But, I've got the tools to go in there and beat anybody. So I'm more so focused on myself and getting myself stronger as opposed to the opponent. I'm not one to, talk crap or talk down. Everybody is going in there with the same dream. They're putting it all out on the line, and I can respect that. But when we're in there, it's either me or you, and I'm going to choose me.
As a guy who likes to press the pace and come forward, do you find advantage this one being in a smaller cage?
The Cage Titans was a very small cage. Cage Titans is even smaller than the Contender will be. So the Contender will be bigger than what I'm used to. Um, I I think I will enjoy the bigger cage more because it'll allow me to be more fluid with my striking. Um, at Cage Titans, you know, as a bigger guy, you take 2 steps backwards, and your back is on the fence. So you have to be engaged the whole time, and you can't really cut angles as readily. Um, so yeah, while the Contender Series cage isn't the full size UFC octagon, um, it's going to be bigger than what I've been fighting in, and I look forward to that.
So this one, obviously going down in the apex, I think what's really unique about the Contender Series, it's the perfect job interview. There's very limited amount of people in there. You go in, there's like no walkout music. You step in the cage, your opponent steps in, straight to business. Obviously, you're coming from an environment in Cage Titans where they pack a couple thousand people in there. The crowd is absolutely crazy. It's ruckus. What do you think of this kind of laid back, more intimate fighting setting?
Yeah, I would prefer a huge crowd. Cage Titans has 2,000 people, and I can't wait to fight in front of 20,000. Uh, so I'm sure the vibe will be different the night of the fight than I'm used to at Cage Titans. Like you said, it's a smaller arena, not as many people. But when I was there in Vegas and we were shooting the pre-fight promos, I snuck in the back there, and the room definitely has a vibe. It's bigger than it looks on TV. It has a vibe. So um, I'm excited to feel that energy on fight night. You know, with all that being said about the venue itself, a fight is a fight, and when you're locked in, uh, you have all the motivation that you need. You shouldn't need the outside motivation to gas you up. You should be locked into that fight, and again, that should be all the motivation that you need to go in there and win that fight. On top of that, the people that will be there will be, close friends and family, and obviously the boss man too, right? So it's not as if there's any more motivation necessary in that setting.
Are you envisioning that moment of potentially after the fight, being with the 4 other winners, Dana White looking at you, telling you to come over, shake your hand, and get your contract?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to do a lot of visualization work. Um, yeah, trying to think of the walkout, think of the entrance, the cage itself, and then of course the fight itself. Like playing through many scenarios in my head, um, and then afterwards too. Being there, sitting in that chair with the other guys, um, thinking of what Dana White might say, and then what I could say there on the mic as well. So I try to picture myself in all those different spots, so that my thought can become reality, and that when I get there, I'm prepared for this huge moment. So I really do like to do a lot of visualization work, um, mainly for the fight. I daydream about the fight all the time. I dream about the fight all the time. Um, yeah, I think it's big for the mind. When you get in that spot, your mind has already been there, and then your body can take the action because the mind knows what to do.
For you, what would it mean to be able to fight in the UFC?
To fight in the UFC, I would say would be the culmination and the fruition of a lifelong dream that I've had since I was a kid. I grew up watching UFC in like the early 2000s. Like I loved watching like Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva, Quentin Rampage Jackson. Like those were some of my favorite guys back then, and still to this day. Like that era had such a style to it, and so many personalities, and so many great fights, especially at 205. Um, and when I was watching as a kid, and even watching a couple of guys who fought locally at the gym that I trained at, I was like, man, like I really want to do this when I grow up, and when I can do it. So, to have put in all the years worth of work, and to get that opportunity, and to win and then fight for the company, again, it would be a childhood dream come to life.
You know, you mentioned Joe was one of the ones who told you that you were officially going to be on the Contender Series. Is he going to be in the corner?
Yeah, he'll be there. Yeah, his advice is definitely big. I've had a couple moments in fights where he shouted something out. I've done it, and it's made a big difference in the fight. So his experience in MMA and as a coach is huge.
Absolutely. You know, another guy fighting on the Contender Series this season from the New England area, Yuri Pantherov, making his second appearance on the Contender Series. Have you been able to mix it up with him? Have your paths crossed at all, training or anything?
Yeah. I haven't trained with him in probably a couple years now, but he used to come up to Lausanne's as well. Yeah, he was always a great guy to get some rounds in with. Yeah, he's a beast. Great grappling, great striking, very well-rounded guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with his second opportunity here.
All right, before I let you go, I want to run you through some big UFC fights, and I want to get your predictions on who can win these big matchups. You know, this weekend's a fun one. We got Robert Whittaker. He's fighting Rainier de Ritter. Who wins that one?
I haven't seen much of de Ritter. I only saw his fight against Bo Nickel. Rob is a beast, and he's so technical and well-rounded, but I feel like he struggles against guys that have frames that are substantially bigger than his. When he went on his tear, he was fighting a lot of other guys that were around like 6 foot, if I recall correctly. But then he goes up and fights Adesanya, and then his style doesn't work quite as well. Then he goes and he knocks off like Cannonier, Gastelum, and a few other guys. I can think of Aliskerov, but he's fought just about everybody at middleweight. Even Paulo Costa. Like, Costa's a big guy, but Rob has a similar frame to him. When he's fought guys like Chimaev is a little bit bigger frame than him, DDP, again, Adesanya, I feel like he struggles with that physicality, and de Ritter is a huge guy and gets right in your face. From what I saw, at least with the Bo Nickel fight. And I think if he does that against Rob, it takes away a lot of Rob's technical mastery, really. Like, he's a technical master. So really it comes down to, I think, if Rob can control that distance, or if de Ritter can get in close and kind of use his size and make it ugly. Having said all that, I'm going to take de Ritter.
So same division, but a championship contest in August. You got Dricus du Plessis taking on Khamzat Chimaev. What a fight. Who's that one?
I'm pumped for that one. I'm going to take DDP. I doubted DDP for a long time on his way up. But he has looked a lot better in his last few fights. I think, based on what we've seen from Chimaev, he's such a front runner, right? He wants to get you out of there right away. But if he doesn't get you out of there in the first round, then things start to change. Gilbert Burns was a very close fight, and Burns was previously a lightweight. Against Kamaru Usman, who took the fight on like a week's notice and went up to 85 to do it. Chimaev had a dominant first, but 2 and 3, weren't looking as good. I don't think he's going to get DDP out of there right away. I think DDP is just too much of a bull. He's too physically strong, and he's a good grappler, to where I think he'll be able to survive that initial onslaught against Chimaev. And then it might be ugly, but I think DDP will go forward and take it to him after that. I think DDP could potentially really take it to Chimaev on the feet once he survives that initial onslaught on the ground. If Chimaev is even able to dominate him on the ground, DDP is a big guy for middleweight. He's got a solid frame. So, I'm going to take DDP in that one.
All right, last prediction. We got a big rematch that just got announced. It's Magomed Ankalaev taking on Alex Pereira again. Different case the second time around, or you still think Ankalaev's got it again?
Yeah, I never saw the first fight. I was trying to order the pay-per-view, and it didn't work. I know that there were a lot of problems with that pay-per-view apparently. So I've never caught up on it, but it's tough. From what I understand, Pereira could never get going in that fight. Ankalaev just kept the pressure on, was pinning him up against the fence. I guess it wasn't a great fight, right? But Ankalaev basically just stymied Pereira. Pereira is probably my favorite fighter in the UFC right now. I'd love to see him win. I'll definitely be rooting for him. Ankalaev's just a tough, awkward matchup for him because he's got good enough striking. It's a little bit awkward. And then, he can wrestle. So that's kind of a tough matchup for Pereira. But Pereira, if he just lands one shot, it's game over, right? So I'll say this without having seen the first fight. So kind of a somewhat uneducated opinion and rooting for the guy that I want to see win. I'm going to take Pereira on that one.
We just mentioned some of the big marquee names in the UFC right now. When you're watching these big guys, when you're watching the pay-per-views, do you get motivation off of it, man? Does some of these guys fire you up?
Yeah, for sure. When I'm watching the welterweights fight in particular, I got to size myself up against them. So it's cool to see, where I'll be at in a couple years' time. And yeah, it's definitely motivation in that it's like, okay, this is the mark that I've got to beat.
A couple minutes ago, you talked about being a martial artist. That's something that you don't see a lot of fighters in this day and age refer to themselves as a martial artist. For you, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
I think it means in all aspects of your life, you carry yourself with the tenets of martial arts, which is really discipline, courtesy for others, where, it's in the training room, you're not going to be a jerk to your training partner, and you're going to be good to them. They're going to help you get better. You're going to help them get better. You should pass on that same courtesy to other people in real life. If everybody works together, we can all come up and be better together. A big part of being a martial artist too is persevering through adversity in life. It's very obvious in training, right? You're tired, you don't want to go, you're dinged up or whatever it is. And then that translates into life. When something hard happens, okay, I'm still here. I'm still going to take one step forward. The next day is a new day, and I'll figure out a way to overcome whatever challenges are presented to me. And I think in integrity too, right? Like MMA is a sport at the end of the day. It's very violent, and it's as primal of a sport as you're going to get, other than maybe bare knuckle MMA, which we were talking about earlier. But at the end of the day, there is a certain level of sportsmanship. You are in there to finish the opponent and to strike them down, and that is violent. But you also respect the guy for the fact that he's taking that risk too, and he's put in the work as well. And you'll follow the rules, right? Just because you're down doesn't mean you're going to go and poke him in the eye or do something like that takes it to the next level. And I think having that integrity in the fight should translate to the rest of your life. Like things that you say you're going to do, you're going to do. You agree to a certain rule set in life, and you follow through on that. Like you tell the truth, you do what you say you're going to do, and you try to do right by other people as much as you can. So that's what being a martial artist means to me.
All right, Jack, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome September 2nd when you fight in the Dana White Contender Series against J.P. Lebosnoyani?
Perfect outcome is to find that knockout, to get that contract, and to solidify myself as the next big UFC fighter.
There you go. Well, Jack, man, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're in the middle of training camp, so I really appreciate this, and I can't wait for this contest, man. It's going to be a banger.
Yes, sir. You know it. Thank you, Carlo. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's it for us tonight. I'm Carl Peruzza. He is Mr. Jack Congdon. You could watch him September 2nd, taking out J.P. Lebosnoyani, Dana White Contender Series. Good night, fight fans.
Peace. Thank you.